Hello and welcome. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hupert, and this is the China Negotiator. Today's program, 3 international businesses that need to be in China. Dateline, January 2019. Loo-Totl Syndrome takes hold in eastern China. That would be the last one out. Please turn off the lights. And if you were in China for basic manufacturing and cost savings, then it may be time to migrate away to greener pastures and cheaper markets. But for some sectors, once you go, you're gone forever, and you might not want that. So the takeaway for today is some businesses have to remain in China to fulfill their basic mission. Others are going to find that there are new opportunities to disrupt or fill the void left by the China exiters. Table of contents, the 3 non-optionals: global brands, China market, supply chain lock-in. Let's start by looking at the global footprint. End-to-end worldwide service has to include the ChinaZone. In this section, global brands require a China presence, service providers and suppliers of MNCs, and opportunistic disruptors. So when we talk about the global brands, we're talking about the Marriotts, the Deltas, the McDonald's, the Disneys, the Mercedes. And if you're one of these giant worldwide companies, then global is your brand. Hotels, airlines, banks, if you can't service your clients wherever they are, then they're going to find someone else. If you don't do it, someone else is going to. The fact that MNCs have to stay in China raises an interesting question for many of you. Servicing multinational clients may require you to remain in China, and this might come as a surprise to some service providers. You might think of yourself as someone who provides a service that is independent of location. You can do your job any place, but the headquarters of this multinational client may view you as the outsourcee due to your China knowledge, that you're the China guy. So if you want to expand to another market, that might be possible. But if you pull up stakes and leave China, you're going to lose that corporate client. And finally, there will be an opportunity to disrupt the multinational supply chain. So if everyone leaves, there is going to be an opportunity for those left behind. And that's if things just continue to hobble along at this damaged state in the relationship. But what if there is a trade deal? What if things actually get better? Then if you're involved in education, banking, insurance, or a host of other services, you want to be on the ground in China as these rules change and as the markets open. So let's look at that. Let's look at the China marketer. And I want to look at 3 types of China marketer. Products that are designed for the China market, products that weren't designed for China but are a hit in China, and the future market of the ChinaZone. So as far as products designed for China, it is easier, or it's becoming easier, to build new products from scratch than to try to market existing brands to the China market. And this requires investment. This requires both marketing and R&D commitments in China. The line separating localization and new product development in China has gotten very, very blurry, and it's really vanished completely. And the anecdote, the example I use for this is Procter & Gamble's Pampers. Pampers was doing okay in China, but when they developed a new product or a new marketing campaign, depending on who you listen to, but when they came out with, I think it was the Golden Sleep diaper that enhanced your child's brain development by helping him to sleep better through the night. And all of a sudden their brand just exploded in China, and everyone wanted their baby-enhancing product. What if your product isn't designed for the China market? It's a global product, and it does take hold and is a big hit in China. We talked about the Pampers idea, but the fashion houses like Chanel and Fendi do great in China. The Hollywood films and the actors and rappers and famous DJs and a whole range of performers and sports franchises are unbelievably popular in China, but you have to know how to make this work in order to monetize and pull these things off, because it is so easy to make a mistake with anything involving the public or the market in China. And, of course, the future market is what keeps a lot of people tuned in. And this is going to go through some changes. And one of the things that is a possibility is a dual standard or multiple standards. So in the future, you might see 6G for international and then a special 6GC just for the ChinaZone, which will mean new devices and maybe even new applications. And we'll see the same thing play out, but driven by market forces, not just technical forces. So what we saw happen with WeChat versus Facebook is going to play out along a lot of different products and a lot of different technologies. So the analogy I use is you might have hover cars in Beijing and hyperloops in Washington. And it won't be because of regulations necessarily. It might just be because of market trends. And finally, the future of the global economy is going to be characterized by competition for trade partners and alliances. And ChinaZone is going to probably have some sort of free trade arrangement for members. It also probably means that the ChinaZone is going to have a separate version of every app, every device, every piece of software. That could mean a whole new market for those who developed the original. Finally, let's look at supply chain lock-in. When I talk about lock-ins, I'm talking about complex factoring, unique materials and processes, and future tech. So the first is complex factoring. And the idea is that if you were making a complicated product that involved many components or parts, you were best off basing yourself or basing part of your operation in China so you can do the quality control and you could take advantage of the clustering effect of the special economic zones. But if trade tensions worsen, then this benefit, what was once a benefit, suddenly becomes a threat as that gets disrupted and you won't be able to complete your supply chain. The same holds true for unique materials and processes. There were a lot of people who were in China because they were in the mineral business or the chemical business or some resource that was unique to China. So pictured here is a refinery of rare earth metals. And China has a de facto monopoly on this because even if you can find the rare earth metals someplace else, no one else wants to put up with the pollution that is a byproduct of the refining process. So new barriers to exit are going to pop up as clusters of industry leaders base themselves in China. So batteries and electric vehicles are a good choice, genetics and stem cell research, mobile payments, and there may be others as time goes on. But China is going to develop natural leadership in certain areas, and that's going to act as a magnet for foreign companies and investment. And finally, future tech. China is probably going to cut its own path from here on in and is probably not going to follow Western technological ladders as closely as it did. So we're going to see different standards and different approaches in China, especially in things like electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, and possibly even quantum computing. And this may encourage a whole new class of international startups in places like Shanghai and Shenzhen and Beijing. Final word. It's your decision to stay or go is business. It's not personal. If the numbers say that you have to stay in China, then you're going to stay in China. And the good news for the leftovers, for those left behind, is that this may be an opportunity to build better connections and to expand your network in China. Because not only are the number of foreigners going to be scarcer going forward, but you can use this to demonstrate your commitment to making the China partnership work. But the bad news is that Chinese counterparties who have been getting a steady diet of Xinhua propaganda/news may try to facilitate your exit. Chinese negotiators often use passive-aggressive tactics to get foreigners to leave, which may include telling you that they're leaving and that there's no future for either of you in China. And once you go, they claim your business and your market share and your technology. Thanks very much for trying to solve. This has been Andrew Hupert discussing the 3 businesses that must stay in China. For further reading on conflict management, check out The Fragile Bridge and 10 Common China Negotiating Mistakes. Thanks again. I will speak to you soon.